Jets coming off 4 straight losses to start the season. Cowboys coming off a tie. Who's going to win Sunday when the Jets take on the Dallas Cowboys at MetLife Stadium? Let's break it down on today's Locked On NFL crossover.
You are Locked On NFL crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome on in, Cowboys fans and Jets fans. I am John Butchko, the host of Locked On Jets, alongside Marcus Mosher, the co-host of Locked On Cowboys. We're here to get you ready for Week 5 action as the Cowboys visit MetLife Stadium to take on the New York Jets. It's Crossover Thursday here on the Locked On Podcast Network, and you should know that Crossover Thursday is presented by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineup after you play your first $5 lineup. Well, Marcus, great to chat with you. Very rare AFC NFC game where these teams actually met 2 years ago. So last time these teams played, it was week 2 of 2023. It was Zach Wilson's first start after Aaron Rodgers' injury, and the Cowboys won that game in a laugher. Last time these teams met at MetLife Stadium, actually some overlap. It was 2019. The Jets had a first-year coach, Adam Gase. They started 0-4. They looked completely lost, and they shocked the NFL by winning that game. Not to say that's going to happen again this time. But anyway, how are you doing? And let's get started. What are the big stories going on in Dallas right now?
Well, the big storyline is the Cowboys just are trying to figure out how to feel about a tie. Like, in some ways, they played really well against Green Bay. You felt like you should have won that game, but the defense also didn't really stop Green Bay at all. In the second half, Green Bay scored on every single possession in the second half and in overtime. You might feel lucky that you got a tie against a team that a lot of people think could be a Super Bowl representative in the NFC. So it's a lot of like, okay, we feel good, but we feel kind of bad because we didn't get a win. And now they enter the part of their schedule where if they're going to be a playoff team, I was going to say contender, but they're not a real contender, a playoff team, you've got to start picking up some wins. They play the Jets this week in New York. They play the Panthers next week in Carolina. If you want to be relevant at all, you've got to win these 2 games. And unfortunately, we've seen this version of the Cowboy team kind of lay some eggs on the road. Against Chicago this year, that was a game that they were favored in. We thought they were going to go in and win that one. Didn't happen. We'll see if it happens against the Jets.
What are the overall vibes around this team? Kind of zooming out a little bit. I know it's a 1-2-1 start. I know you have a new coach this year, and Brian Schottenheimer, a former Jets offensive coordinator who was not very popular in the fan base during his time here. Obviously, a very dramatic offseason that ended in a big trade. Just kind of wondering what the pulse is around the team and around the Cowboys fan base at the moment.
I got to say, this is probably the weirdest time ever to be a Cowboy fan because you have most of the fan base that's upset with Jerry Jones because of the Micah Parsons trade, right? They feel like they traded away their best player in his prime, and they didn't get enough. And not only that, you gave him to one of your biggest rivals in the Packers. On the other hand, you've got Dak Prescott playing at an MVP level. Like, I don't think that's too strong to say. Like, he is playing the best football of his career. The offense is way better than anybody anticipated. They've been without multiple starters, including CeeDee Lamb, Tyler Booker, Cooper Beebe, Tyler Guyton, and yet they still are putting up 40 points in some of these games. So you feel like, okay, maybe you've got the right coach that can take this offense to the next level, but the front office is so bad and the defense is absolutely horrendous that you just don't know how to feel. And I think, honestly, these next 2 games, the Jets and the Panthers, are going to help answer a lot of questions about where the Cowboys are at as a franchise right now.
Well, the Jets are at a very different point from the Cowboys. They're off to an 0-4 start, which is disappointing. I don't know that it's entirely unexpected. I was hoping the Jets would be better this year, and a couple of these games could have gone either way. I mean, I think the Jets were competitive in 3 of the 4 games. The
Steeler game is one they probably should have won.
Yeah, I would agree with that. They got blown out by Buffalo week 2. Week 3 against Tampa Bay was a wild game. They were down 20 in the fourth quarter. They actually took the lead briefly before losing on a last-second field goal. Then against the Miami Dolphins, they were in the game, but they kept making the self-inflicted error. Big story around the Jets right now is just overall frustration because I'll tell you, Marcus, I don't think this Jets team is that talented by NFL standards. I think if you ranked this Jets roster versus the rosters of the other 31 teams in the league, it would come in pretty low. But I don't think the big reason the Jets are losing these games, is necessarily a lack of talent. I think the Jets are just making a lot of mistakes, lots of penalties and dumb penalties, personal fouls, not getting set at the line of scrimmage on big passing downs.
Well, can I ask you something, John? Because one of the things I'm struggling with right now is you look at this Jets defense and you see a lot of big names, right? You see Quinnen Williams, you see Sauce Gardner. We know they've had some injuries at linebacker, but this is a defense with like Will McDonald, who had a lot of flashes in week one. Harrison Phillips is the guy, that the Cowboys were hoping to trade for. And you don't understand why the defense is this bad. Whereas like on the Cowboys side, I mean, they're worse than the Jets on defense, but it's understandable because they don't have all pro players like Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner. They also don't have a defensive minded coach like Aaron Glenn. Why has this defense gotten to be this porous?
I have three reasons for you. Number one, the big names are not playing up to their standard. Sauce Gardner had a great week one against Pittsburgh, really shut down DK Metcalf. In fact, all of Metcalf's production came against somebody else. The Jets had Gardner's shadow Metcalf. The handful of plays Gardner did not guard Metcalf, that was when DK put up his production. Quinnen Williams, he's playing really well against the run, but he hasn't been an impact guy as a pass rusher just yet. So that's number one. Number two, there have been issues implementing this new scheme. I've talked about it on Locked On Jets. It seems like there's a lot of confusion, particularly in the secondary, about assignments. I don't know if things are being communicated effectively, but you see guys who aren't really sure where they need to be. There's a lack of communication. Guys are not switching when they should be. There's just all these issues where it just seems like something is out of sorts in the secondary. And I think that the scheme the guys are still learning the scheme, and it's clear that they're not entirely comfortable with it right now. And you're just seeing a lot of breakdowns. See guys run into each other, and the guys not calling out rub routes, pick plays. It's just a mess right now. Number three,
I was gonna say the corner seems like it's an issue outside of Sauce as well. Like they're struggling to find that other guy, whether it's Brandon Stevens or Michael Carter in the slot. It seems like that's been another big issue in this defense.
Absolutely. And my number three is that while there are big names like Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams, there are also a lot of guys who really should not be in starting level roles, getting big snaps on this defense. Brandon Stevens was one of the big additions this offseason. They signed him from Baltimore as a corner. It left a lot of people scratching their heads in the Jets fan base, left a lot of analysts who just follow the NFL in general scratching their heads. Stevens has been a guy who really struggled in Baltimore. It has been ugly so far this season. Jets have also had some injuries. So you have guys like Michael Clemens getting big snaps. Michael Clemens is a guy who at best is like a number 4 defensive end who you play maybe 10 snaps a game. And he's not a guy who's going to produce a lot. He's a guy who maybe won't kill you unless he he has a tendency to commit the big penalty.
He's a little bit of a hothead. He's very similar to Sam Williams, who the Cowboys are going through the same struggles right now at defensive end.
Yeah. So, I mean, and then they've suffered some injuries. And again, like there is top end talent, but there is zero depth. And so Quincy Williams is out, who was an all-pro linebacker 2 years ago. His backup, Marcelino McCrary-Ball, is out with an injury. So now you have Kiko Mauigoa, who was a day 3 rookie starting at linebacker. And you look across this defense, lots of guys who, Tony Adams, who is a decent depth player, but should not be a starting safety in this league. So the top end talent for the Jets is good, but the lower tier starters are guys who really should not be playing starting roles in this league. And I think that's what's getting exposed on this defense. And it's been ugly. I mean, there's no question about it.
Now you would hope when you hire a defensive minded head coach that they can cover up some of the lesser players. And that's why you hire somebody like Aaron Glenn. This is not anything new for him. When he was in Detroit last year, they had at one point 10 defensive linemen that were out. And yet that defense found ways to be successful. Has it been, I'm assuming it has been very discouraging that he hasn't been able to get those same results in New York.
Yes. And there's a bit of mystery about how much Glenn is hands-on and how much he's delegated to the coordinator. He hired Steve Wilkes. Whatever they've been doing has not been working. And it's been, it hasn't just been that like they've struggled. It's been how sloppy they've been, how many blown assignments that they've had. What's frustrating is that the 2024 Jets were a really sloppy team. Lots of penalties, lots of just not smart football. Glenn came in here. The first thing Glenn said, and he was vocal about this all offseason, was we're going to play more disciplined football. We're going to play smarter football. And it hasn't happened yet. Maybe it'll start happening going forward. Jets fans certainly have to hope so. Ahead here on our crossover Thursday edition of the Locked On Jets and Locked On Cowboys, we're going to talk about the biggest matchups. We'll talk about Jets offense versus Cowboys defense, Jets defense versus Cowboys offense. That's ahead here on our Locked On crossover episode. Our crossover Thursday edition of Locked On Jets and Locked On Cowboys is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Because right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little bit more energy to Sundays. And looking ahead to this Sunday, Cowboys coming to MetLife Stadium to play the Jets. Dallas, a 2.5-point road favorite. If you've been watching the Jets all year, that's no surprise. You would expect the Jets to be home underdogs to the Dallas Cowboys. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Today's Locked On crossover is also brought to you by Wayfair. When you think game day, you may not think Wayfair, but you should, because Wayfair is the best kept secret for incredible and affordable game day finds. Wayfair has everything you need to get your space ready for the season, whether you're tailgating outdoors or cheering from your living room. What's best about Wayfair is the selection. Wayfair has unique finds and options for every budget, so you can show off your team spirit without overspending. Delivery is fast, free, and hassle-free, which is a lifesaver when you need something in time for kickoff. From outdoor essentials like folding chairs and patio heaters to indoor must-haves like TD stands and serveware, Wayfair has it all in one place. Wayfair is your trusted destination for all things game day, from coolers and grills to recliners and slow cookers. Shop, save, and score today at wayfair.com. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair. Every style, every home. It's Crossover Thursday here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm John Butchko, the host of Locked On Jets, alongside Marcus Mosher, the co-host of Locked On Cowboys, getting you ready for Week 5 action. Dallas Cowboys coming to MetLife Stadium to take on the Jets. One of two trips by the Cowboys to MetLife Stadium this season, because, of course, the Cowboys are in the NFC East. They also take on the Giants each year. Marcus, let's talk key matchups. What do you have your eye on in this game?
I don't know if I really want to have my eye on this matchup, but it's the Jets offense against the Cowboys defense. And John, I don't know if your listeners know, but the Cowboys defense is awful. And awful is actually maybe too nice. It's the worst unit I have ever seen in my life. They did not force the Packers to punt in the second half in an overtime. The Bears scored, I think, on their first 6 possessions against Dallas. Russell Wilson threw for 450 yards and 3 touchdowns, and he was benched 2 weeks later. He averaged 11 yards an attempt. This defense is pitiful, and I think the concern is in this game, even Justin Fields, who is not maybe a franchise-level quarterback, can come into this game and have a ton of success. I was actually Googling Justin Fields' highest passing yardage total in the NFL in a single game. I think it's 335. Wouldn't be surprised if he gets it. But I think the bigger concern for me is, how do the Cowboys handle this run game? Because if I were the Jets, I would try to run the ball 40 times in this game. Let Fields handle it 10, 12 times. Give it to Breece Hall. Give it to Isaiah Davis. And just try to limit the number of possessions in this game, because you're going to have success moving the ball. The Cowboys have a bend but don't break defense, but they break on almost every single drive. So if you could put together these 10, 12, 14 play drives, you're just going to limit the number of times that your defense is on the field. That is terrifying for Cowboy fans.
You say it's the worst defense you've ever seen in Dallas. And it's almost like a challenge to the Jets, because the Jets defense is up there this year. It has not been very good. I think that what you said, though, makes sense, because it kind of plays into what the Jets' offensive identity is. The Jets want to run the ball. On Monday night against Miami, they ran the ball 13 of the first 14 plays. Now, little caveat, there were a couple designed passes where Justin Fields took off on a scramble, but this is Jets team that wants to run early and often. So that could very well be the type of thing that they look to they look to get going. I think that they very well could be running the game plan that you suggest. I'm going to give you my first matchup. Garrett Wilson versus Daron Bland. Garrett Wilson is the Jets' number one receiver, and he's had 3 seasons in the NFL. He's been over 1,000 yards 3 times. And Marcus, I probably don't need to tell you, the Jets' quarterback play has not been that great during Garrett Wilson's time in the NFL. Even last year with Aaron Rodgers, who, Aaron Rodgers, obviously a 4-time MVP, a future first ballot Hall of Famer. Aaron Rodgers did not play at a super high level for the Jets last year, and he was the best quarterback who Garrett Wilson has ever had. Garrett Wilson's off to the best start of his career. He's really the one option and really the only option through the first 4 games. Now there was a guy I'm going to talk about a little bit later who may have stepped up against Miami and maybe kind of sliding into the number 2 role in the Jets offense, but he's the only reliable guy the Jets can throw to on the offensive side of the ball. So defenses know that they have to key on Garrett Wilson, but Garrett Wilson's still been getting numbers. He's through the first 4 weeks, he's on a 1,300-yard pace. So Jets passing game runs through Garrett Wilson. Even though they're a run first team, look, it's the NFL. The Jets are not running the wishbone here. We're not, a triple option team. The Jets
might not be a bad idea this week, honestly, but go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I still think the Jets are going to throw the ball. So I think Garrett Wilson's going to, Garrett Wilson's going to be an important guy.
Can I try to name all the quarterbacks that Garrett Wilson has caught passes from in his career? Let's see: Justin Fields, Tyrod Taylor, Zach Wilson, Aaron Rodgers. There was Joe Flacco, Mike White. There was a Tim Boyle game in there, a Trevor Siemian, and I think I'm missing one, but I think I got them all. It's not a great list.
I think you might be right about that. I think Trevor Siemian was the one that I was expecting Trevor Siemian to be the one that tripped you up. But yeah,
it's been rough. But I do think you're right to highlight this matchup because Daron Bland has been dealing with a foot ankle injury. He just got back on the field last week against Green Bay, and Green Bay went at him. And as you would expect, that's a guy that's coming off an injury. Cowboys are hopeful that he'll be better here in week 5. Trayvon Diggs has been very up and down. Now, I do think he played better against Green Bay, but again, he's really more of an off-man cornerback that you want sitting in zones. The Cowboys have paid a lot of money for their 2 cornerbacks, Diggs and Bland. They're hopeful that this is like a matchup they can exploit. You look at the receivers outside of Garrett Wilson, and nobody really scares you. I think Allen Lazard was the only receiver for the Jets to catch a pass last week. This is a matchup the Cowboys have to win if they want to win this game. And based on just what we've seen over the last couple of weeks, whether it was Luther Burden or Romeo Doubs or Roma Dunze or Malik Neighbors or Wan'Dale Robinson, I don't feel all that optimistic about it.
Do you have a second matchup?
Sure. I mean, I'm really curious to see how the Jets offensive line, really their interior offensive line, handles the Cowboys defensive tackles, because the pass rush has been rough for Dallas this year, right? They're hoping Jadeveon Clowney can be better than he was last week. They have Marshawn Nealon. They have Donovan Ezeraku, but the strength of this team is Osa Odighizuwa and Kenny Clark. Those 2 guys have to provide the pass rush. They've got to be able to stop the run. And I think if you're going to get the Jets a little bit, it's their interior offensive line. Armand Membu has been fantastic at right tackle, but how do they handle Josh Myers at center, Tippmann at right guard? That's one of the matchups that I'm curious to see, because if the Jets are able to block those guys up front, they're going to be able to run the ball all day. If the Cowboys want to win, they're going to have to force the Jets to get into some of these 3rd and long situations and make Justin Fields pass. Keep an eye on the interior offensive line and defensive line here.
Great minds think alike. I almost went with that as my second matchup because I agree with everything you just said. I think that is an absolutely critical matchup. But the second matchup I went with was Quinnen Williams versus the interior of the Dallas offensive line, because I know the Cowboys have been a little bit banged up on the interior. As I said earlier, Quinnen Williams is playing the run really well this year. He rushed the passer very effectively against Pittsburgh week 1. He's been kind of quiet since then. And like I said earlier, the Jets secondary has been a bit of a mess in recent weeks. So if the Jets have any chance of slowing down this Cowboys offense, it has to be from the pass rush. And, Jermaine Johnson's status is up in the air. He's missed the last 2 games with an ankle injury. Will McDonald, the first round pick from a year ago, He's been up and down this year.
He's not really a run defender. He's more of a pass rusher as well. Yeah,
absolutely. So really, the guy who's got to take this game over is Quinnen Williams. I think especially the Jets are going to want to get him matched up against Brock Hoffman, T.J. Bass. Try and take advantage of the backups the Cowboys have in there. And I always think like when you have offensive line injuries, it's kind of a double whammy. In a way, it's not for any other position, because at any position when you put a backup in, usually it's not as good as the starter, but on the offensive line, it especially hurts because the offensive line is so much about chemistry and continuity that it's really tough to just put guys in there. Jets have experienced that a little bit this year with Elijah Vera Tucker going down and Joe Tippmann moving to guard, although I think they've handled it relatively well. But I think Quinnen Williams, if the Jets are going to pull the upset here, this has to be a game where Quinnen Williams gets like two and a half sacks.
Yeah, and we should also mention Tyler Guyton, the Cowboys' left tackle. He suffered a concussion on Sunday. Now, the Cowboys think he's going to be able to make it through protocol. I have my doubts, and that means you could have potentially 3 new starters this week, and it would be a 7th-round pick at left tackle, a 1st-round pick at left guard, undrafted free agent, undrafted free agent, undrafted free agent. That's a matchup the Jets have to win if they want to slow down Dallas.
All right, well, you've heard the big stories around these teams. You've heard the big matchups. Ahead here on our crossover Thursday edition of Locked On Jets and Locked On Cowboys, we're going to talk keys to victory. What do the Jets need to do? What do the Cowboys need to do? That's ahead here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's crossover Thursday edition of Locked On Jets and Locked On Cowboys is brought to you by Game Time. The NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. Between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout, it's frustrating. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. Marcus, I've used Game Time on a number of occasions myself. I've told this to Locked On Jets fans, but I'll tell this to you and Locked On Cowboys fans. My family always goes to San Diego for Christmas because that's where my brother lives. There was about 2 years ago, we were going to the Holiday Bowl, and my dad had bought tickets for some of us, but not all of us. My nephew says, I want to go to the game. I pull out my phone. I'm like, I got this. I got a great ticket on Game Time for an affordable price. Just one of many times I've used Game Time. And I love that they give you the all-in prices because you don't have to worry about hidden fees. You know the price before you buy. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDONNFL, one word with no space for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. It's Crossover Thursday here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm John Butchko, the host of Locked On Jets, alongside Marcus Mosher, the co-host of Locked On Cowboys. All right, Marcus, it's time to talk keys to victory. What's your first key for the Dallas Cowboys?
The first one is just do your job, right? Like I think, and I'm going to diss the Jets a little bit here. I think the Cowboys are the more talented team. They're the more disciplined team. We've seen that the Jets have really racked up the penalties. They're prone to fumbling the ball. Now, Fields has not turned the ball over himself a ton, but as long as you don't make the back-breaking mistakes, like the defensive holding call on 3rd and 11 or jumping offside to the false start, I do think the talent will ultimately win out here. And for the most of these games, like if you just go across the league, more often than not, the better quarterback usually their teams end up winning these games. And then Dak Prescott, again, is playing some of the best football of his career. So avoid those big penalties. Don't play outside of yourself. If the Cowboys can do that, I think they'll be just fine.
Oh, that's a perfect segue to my first key for the Jets. And you have to cut out the dumb plays. And I was about to say the same thing you did. The Cowboys are the better of the two teams. Now, in the NFL, if you're the less talented team, you can win. The talent gap in the NFL between the worst team and the best team is really not that big. This is not Alabama versus, Northwest Idaho State, college football.
I watched the Titans last week. We might disagree on that one, but sorry, Tyler.
The point is, like in college, like in college, like one team can be so much better than the other. You can play poorly and lose. You can play really badly and lose if you're the better team. In the NFL, anybody can beat anybody. The old saying, any given Sunday. But if you're the lesser team, you can't make dumb mistakes. And the Jets have played the first 4 games as dumb as any team I've ever seen. They just make terrible mistake after terrible mistake. A personal foul that ends a drive. The Jets moved the ball well against Miami. They just kept committing the penalties at the worst possible time. things like fumbling, things like fair catch on the 3-yard line. I mean, these are the mistakes you can't make if you want to beat a superior Dallas team. So my first key for the Jets is just play smart football. So how about you? What's your number 2 key for Dallas?
It's win the special teams battle. And this is something that the Cowboys did well last week against Green Bay. They blocked the extra point that they returned for 2 points. That's a 3-point swing. Kevontae Turpin had a big return at the end of the game to set up the go-ahead touchdown. Brandon Aubrey, one of the best kickers in the league. He was clutch all game long with the kickoffs. In a game in which the Cowboys defense is going to struggle to get stops, you have to win the special teams battle. And that's something that, for the most part, the Cowboys have done this year. Keep an eye on their special teams unit, because a lot of times they can swing games. If they have a poor game in this one, it's going to be awfully hard for the offense to overcome that unit as well as the defense.
My number 2 key for the Jets might be familiar to Jets fans, because I think I've used this key the last 2-3 weeks. The Jets have to simplify their coverages. They have to figure out this coverage scheme, because there are just too many busts in the secondary. I mean, there was a play on a 3rd down against Miami where they had nobody assigned to Tyreek Hill. I mean, they essentially, like, it was the easiest completion of Tua Tagovailoa's life. It's a 3rd down play. He's going to look to his number 1 receiver, and nobody's covering him. And that seemed like it was by design, by the coverage the Jets ran. But there were also just breakdowns. I mean, there was one play where Hill caught a pass because Sauce Gardner thought he and Tony Adams were switching, and Adams didn't switch. This system right now just seems like it's confusing guys. So the Jets need to simplify things. They need to get everyone on the same page. And even if you're running more basic coverages, it's better to run a coverage you can execute than a complex coverage you're going to bust. So I think the Jets have to adjust what they're doing on the defensive side of the ball.
And for the Cowboys, the last thing, the offense has got to start fast. You cannot have one of these games where it takes you 2-3 possessions to get points on the board. And this happened against Green Bay last week. Like, they got down early in this game, and then, they're really fighting all game long to get back in it. Against a Jets team that's coming off a Monday night game on the road, you have to start hot. You've got to go down in the first couple of drives and get points, even if it's just field goals, getting something on the board, because I do think this Jets team, some of the quotes you're hearing out of the locker room aren't great. If you can get that 10-0 lead, 14-0 lead, maybe things can start to roll downhill for you a little bit. But the longer you keep the Jets in this game, the more that they're going to believe that they can steal it. Don't let that happen.
Yeah, I've seen this happen. I've got a lot of experience watching bad Jets teams. And one thing I've noticed is when the Jets have a bad team and they're able to pull an upset, it's when the other team gets off to a slow start, momentum starts to build, and the Jets start to believe. So I think that's a great point that you make. My 3rd key to the Jets is continue to get Mason Taylor involved. I mentioned earlier that Garrett Wilson is the number 1 receiver on this team. And through the first 3 weeks of the season, there really was no second option. In week 4, we started to see a second option emerge. It was a rookie tight end, Mason Taylor, who got off to a slow start, which is not surprising. Tight end's a tough position to transition to in the NFL. Taylor's not a finished product. He's actually the son of Hall of Fame defensive end Jason Taylor and the nephew of linebacker Zach Thomas. A guy who's got great family ties to the NFL, but it started to feel like he was coming on against Miami. And it also started to feel like Justin Fields was getting comfortable throwing him the ball. And we know that for the Jets, every team's coverage scheme is going to be focused around taking away Garrett Wilson. And Garrett Wilson's been so good that he's still been able to produce despite that so far this year. But you still want to have somebody who can give Garrett Wilson a break. So Mason Taylor stepping up, I think is important. I think him continuing to kind of grow in his role in this offense, type of thing the Jets need. Jets can run the ball. Jets have a number 1 receiver. What they're lacking is a quality target beyond Garrett Wilson. If Mason Taylor can be that guy, it could take this Jets offense to a better place.
And just for a prediction real quick, this game makes me really nervous if you're a Cowboy fan. You just came off an emotional Sunday night game that went into overtime. They played a bunch of snaps in that one. Now you're going on the road, playing a noon kickoff, for them, a 1 p.m. kickoff. And the Cowboys have historically struggled in these kind of games. So I'm not saying that they're going to lose, but this is the type of game that should make you very, very nervous. I'm going to pick the Jets to pull off the upset in a, let's say, 27-24 game. Be cautious of this one, Cowboy fans.
I would pick the Dallas Cowboys, but I think it's going to be a high scoring game just based on these defenses, which the way these things go is like this is going to end up being like a 10-7 game because it'll be like one game where these defenses finally play well. It's the NFL has a way of throwing curveballs at us. Just whenever you're sure something's going to happen in a game, the opposite usually happens. I find so. I wouldn't be surprised if this was. I think it's going to be a high scoring game, but would I be shocked if like this game out of nowhere is like a defensive struggle? No, I think the Jets are going to be competitive in this one, though. I think that this is. I'm not ready to pick the Jets to win. I need to see the Jets close out a game before I'm ready to pick them to win. But I think that this Jets team, there's a lot of just negative feelings around them. I feel like this is the type of game where maybe they sneak up on Dallas and at least give them a scare. So I think we're kind of on the same page. This is a rare Locked On episode though, where we're picking the other team.
Shows you our confidence in our respective teams, right?
I've been a part of a few of these before, which I think when you're a Jets fan, you'd never pick the Jets, but yeah. I think you're absolutely right. Marcus, great chatting with you as always. I wish we could do this more often. I had a great time. I wish unfortunately the AFC, NFC teams don't only meet every couple of years, but it was great chatting with you.
Yep, same as well.
All right, and Jets fans and Cowboys fans, be sure to tune into Locked On Jets and Locked On Cowboys tomorrow. You're on the Locked On Podcast Network. Our motto is your team every day. We're here every day, Monday through Friday. Marcus will be back on Locked On Cowboys. I'll be on Locked On Jets. We'll preview this Week 5 game between the Jets and the Cowboys. We'll chat then.